The lecture hall became very noisy. Students from many different planets started talking at once in their own languages. The translators could not keep up. Some students thought they heard the wrong thing. Others thought the creature was using some kind of trick. Purring. Piptil made a squeaking sound. Korvals don't purr. They attack and kill. Professor Velthar raised his hand to make everyone quiet. His scales were making patterns that showed he was very upset. I promise you, this sound is how Korvals show they are happy. We have seen baby Korvals do this with their mothers, but never with another species. This has never happened before. Doyen had not moved from his spot. He stood very still and watched the creature. The baby Korval pressed itself against the inside of the container. It was as close to Doyen as it could get. The purring got even louder. Some of its many eyes were closed like it was relaxing. Can I touch the energy wall? Doyen asked in a calm voice. No. The professor's scales stood up straight. The container protects you. Even through the energy, you could be hurt. But Doyen had already reached out his hand. His palm touched the container's surface. The whole room became silent and still. When his hand made contact with the energy field, something amazing happened. The baby Korval pressed its head against the same spot from inside. Only the thin energy wall was between them now. The purring sound got so loud that the floor started to shake. I have never seen this before, Professor Velthar said in a quiet voice. He took out his recording device quickly. This should not be possible. One of the guards walked forward. He was very big and came from a species that was famous for being strong fighters. But he looked worried. Sir, I have worked with dangerous animals for 15 years. I have never seen anything like this. The creature is not showing any attack signals. Its poison glands have closed. Even the way it stands has changed. It is treating the human like its own family, the professor said, finishing the guard's sentence. His voice sounded shocked. It is treating him like another Korval. Byung had come down from his seat. He stood several meters away from the platform. Doyen, this is so strange. I don't know if this is good or bad. Doyen looked at his friend for a moment. It's just a scared baby. Look at it carefully. Someone took it away from its mother. They put it in this box. Then they brought it to a room where hundreds of strange creatures are staring at it. Wouldn't you be afraid too? Most animals would be afraid, Professor Velthar agreed. And that makes them very dangerous. A frightened predator is the kind that attacks. But it's not frightened now, Doyen observed, turning back to the creature. Right, little one? The baby Korval did something that made many students cry out in surprise. One student fell to the floor unconscious. The creature rolled over onto its back. It showed its soft belly through the clear container. In the animal world, this was the biggest sign of trust. Animals only showed their belly when they felt completely safe with someone. I must report this immediately, Professor Velthar said. His hands were shaking as he typed on his device. This changes everything we know about these creatures and about humans. Or, Doyen said quietly, still looking at the happy baby. Maybe it just means Korvals are not as scary as everyone thinks. Maybe they just need kindness and calm energy like most animals do. Human, your species has only been in space for less than 1 year, the professor said. He was not being mean, just honest. The Korval have been studied for 200 years. They are called Category 9 hostile creatures. This means they cannot live peacefully with intelligent species. What you are suggesting would change everything. A loud alarm suddenly rang through the hall. The container's energy field started flashing red. Warning symbols appeared in many different languages around it. System problem, one of the guards shouted. He ran toward the control panel. The container's power is failing. Everyone panicked immediately. Students rushed toward the doors. They pushed and climbed over each other trying to escape. Professor Velthar was talking into his communicator very fast. He was calling for security and emergency teams. Everyone leave now, the professor commanded. The container is breaking. That creature could escape any second. Byung grabbed Doyen's arm and tried to pull him away. Come on, we have to go. But Doyen did not move. His eyes stayed on the baby Korval. The creature had turned right side up again. Its scales were flashing with colors that showed it was upset. But it was not looking at the panicking students or the breaking container. All 16 of its shining eyes were locked on Doyen. The purring had changed to a high crying sound. It's scared again, Doyen said. His voice was calm even though everyone else was screaming. All these people running are making it worse. Of course it's scared, Byung yelled. and when it gets out, it will be scared and angry, which means the container's energy field broke apart with a sound like breaking glass. Energy scattered across the platform in harmless sparks. The baby Corval stood in the open air. There was no container anymore. Nothing was holding it back. Its tail rose up high with the poison point shining bright. The lecture hall became crazy with fear. Even the guards were moving back. They took out weapons, but their hands were shaking. Everyone was running away except one person. Doyen stepped forward. He put himself between the frightened predator and all the chaos. He slowly got down on one knee. This made him smaller and less scary. "It's okay," he said softly. His voice was very different from all the screaming and alarms. "You're safe. Nobody will hurt you." The baby Corval's tail moved back and forth. Its eyes looked between Doyen and all the running students. It was trying to decide what to do. Every natural instinct probably told it to attack and defend itself. Doyen held out his hand with his palm facing up. This was a peaceful gesture. "I'm right here. I won't leave you." Professor Velthar had been running toward the exit, but he stopped and turned around to watch. He could not believe what he was seeing. The security team that just arrived through the doors froze. They had equipment ready but did not use it. The whole galaxy seemed to stop and wait. Then the baby Corval moved. It did not strike like its species was famous for doing. It did not use the deadly speed and precision it was born with. Instead, it moved slowly and carefully. It closed the distance between itself and the kneeling human. When it reached Doyen, it pressed its hard head against his open hand. Then it started to purr again. The sound filled the entire lecture hall. It was loud and clear and impossible to misunderstand. This was not a trick. This was not a hunting strategy. This was a baby animal that had found someone it trusted, someone who made it feel safe. Doyen gently touched the creature's head. He was careful to move his hand along the direction of its plates. The baby's purring got even louder. Then it started doing something else that made everyone stare in shock. The creature began rubbing its body against Doyen's legs. It moved in a figure-8 pattern. Anyone from Earth would know this behavior. Cats did exactly the same thing when they loved someone. "Somebody get a xenobiologist here immediately," Professor Velthar ordered. His voice was shaking. "And contact the Institute. Tell them we have a Category 9 predator showing friendly bonding behavior with a human student." Bayonne carefully came closer. He stayed several meters away but close enough to talk. "Doyen, that creature could still kill you in 1 second. You know that, right?" "You could technically kill me too," Doyen said without looking up from the creature. "But you won't do it. That's different. I can think." "That's just an animal, a baby animal that's confused and scared," Doyen interrupted. He was now sitting with his legs crossed on the platform. The baby Corval had curled up partly in his lap. This should have been impossible because of how the creature's body was shaped. Its tail wrapped loosely around Doyen's arm. The poison point was carefully pointed away from him. "It's not a monster. Just look at it." One of the guards came closer. Her name was Mirka, and she had soft fur all over her body. She was scanning the creature with a handheld device. Her fur was standing up because she was confused. Its stress chemicals are normal. Aggression markers are completely gone. By every measurement, this baby is totally happy and content. The secure xenobiology lab was deep under the academy buildings. It was not cold and scary like the prison cells shown in human movies. It was designed to be comfortable. The lab had controls that could copy the environment of many different planets. Still, as Doyen walked through the heavy metal doors with nervous security guards, he felt like he was entering a very nice cage. The baby Corval was being moved separately in a new container. This one had backup power and enough safety systems to protect a small spaceship. Through the clear surface, Doyen could see the creature pressed against the side closest to him. Its many shining eyes followed his every movement. "The observation will last for 1 week at first," Professor Velthar explained as they entered the main lab space. It was a big room, easily 50 meters across. Different environmental zones were set up throughout the space. One corner had rocks and UV lamps. Another had shallow pools of liquid. A third was filled with formations that looked like crystals. "We'll watch both of you all the time. If the bond stays stable, we may make the study longer." Head researcher Thalmor was already there. He was overseeing the installation of monitoring equipment with help from several graduate students. Byung was there too. He had volunteered to serve as a control subject and backup observer. "Are you sure about this?" Byung asked quietly when Doyun came near. A whole week locked in here with that creature? I'll be fine, Doyun said confidently. Look, it's already upset being away from me, it was true. The baby's scales had become darker, and it was making a sad crying sound. The handlers who were preparing to release it kept looking at their stun weapons nervously. Dean Cormus stood in the observation gallery above them. Her crystal body was bending the lab lights in a way that looked disapproving. Next to her were representatives from the Galactic Biological Ethics Committee, the Academy Board, and what looked like several military officials. Word about what happened had spread fast. Everyone wanted to see the human who could make friends with an apex predator. Begin the release process, Thalmor commanded. Doyun, please position yourself in the center of the main chamber. Doyun did what he was told. He walked calmly to the middle of the room. Behind him, he heard the hum of the container powering down, then the soft click of it opening. For a moment, nothing happened. Then came the sound of hard legs moving across the floor very fast. The security team became tense. Their hands moved toward weapons. The baby Korval burst into view. It moved with the smooth grace its species was famous for. Several watchers in the gallery made sounds of fear. One of the military officials actually pulled out his weapon before being stopped by a colleague. The baby ran straight toward Doyun. It crossed the distance in seconds. Then it wrapped itself around his legs while purring loud enough to be heard in the observation gallery above. Remarkable, Thalmor said softly. His recording equipment was capturing every detail. Its stress markers dropped the moment it touched him. Could be a hunting strategy, suggested one of the military observers through the intercom. Making prey feel safe before attacking. With respect, Commander Tren, Professor Velthar replied. If this creature wanted to kill the human, it would have done so by now. Korvals don't play with their food. Doyun had crouched down and was looking at the baby more closely. I think it might be hungry. When was its last feeding? 4 hours ago, one of the handlers reported. Standard protocol is to keep contained predators slightly hungry to keep them calm. That's terrible, Doyun said flatly. It's a growing baby. It probably needs to eat every few hours. Feeding it now would increase its energy levels and possibly its aggression, Dean Cormus said from above. Or it would make it more comfortable and less stressed, Doyun argued. He looked up at the observation gallery. If we're doing this study, let's do it properly. This creature shouldn't be treated like a prisoner. Thalmor's scales moved in what might have been approval. Bring the baby's food. Let's see how it behaves during feeding time. A handler came from a side door. She was carrying a sealed container. She approached very carefully, placed it on the floor several meters from Doyun, and quickly moved away. The container opened automatically. 3 small creatures that looked somewhat like rodents came out. They immediately began running around the lab. The baby Korval's whole behavior changed instantly. Its scales shifted to a flat black that seemed to swallow light. Its eyes got bigger, tracking all 3 prey animals at the same time. And then it moved. The strike was so fast that even the high-speed cameras almost missed it. The baby became a blur of motion. Its 6 legs carried it across the lab floor like flowing shadow. It caught the first prey animal with its claws, the second with its mouth parts, and the third with its barbed tail. All of this happened in 3 seconds. The observation gallery went completely silent. This was the creature they had expected to see from the beginning. A perfect killing machine that was efficient and deadly. But then the baby Korval did something unexpected. It killed its prey quickly, much more humanely than wild predators often did, and then, instead of eating the catch right away, it picked up one of the bodies in its mouth and carried it back to Doyun. Is it trying to share? Byung asked in disbelief. The baby dropped the prey animal at Doyun's feet. It looked up at him in an expecting way and made a soft chirping sound. I think it's trying to feed me, Doyun said. He could not keep the smile out of his voice. That's actually a bonding behavior. Cats do it on Earth. Mother wolves do it with their young. This has never been documented before, Thalmor said. He seemed to say this phrase a lot. Korvals are solitary hunters. They don't share kills except during mating season or with their own babies. Doyun carefully reached down and touched the offered prey, accepting the gift. The baby Korval's purring got louder. It settled down to eat its own portion. It positioned itself so its body was between Doyun and the rest of the lab. This was a protective stance. The tests continued throughout the day. They watched how the baby reacted to different things with and without Doyun there. They measured its hormone levels, tracked its behavior patterns, and wrote down everything with scientific care. The results were the same every time. With Doyun, the baby Korval was calm and playful. It showed behaviors that were typical of young social predators. Without him, it became worried and defensive. But importantly, it never actually attacked anyone. It just moved to the far corner of the lab and watched carefully. It's imprinted on him, Mirka the handler concluded after reviewing the day's data, like baby birds imprinting on their mother. Somehow this human has become its family. But it's too old for that, another researcher protested. Imprinting happens in the first few days of life. This baby is 3 months old. Perhaps, Thalmor suggested, the process is different for Korvals. Or perhaps it's specific to how Death World predators respond to other Death World predators. We're exploring completely new territory here. As simulated night fell in the lab, they were underground, so there was no real night. Doyun set up his sleeping area in one of the environmental zones. The baby Korval watched with interest as he unrolled a sleeping mat and arranged his things. You'll need to keep monitoring equipment on while you sleep, Professor Velthar said through the intercom. And please keep the emergency beacon within reach. I'll be fine, Doyun said confidently. I've slept in the same room as dogs and cats all my life. This isn't that different. That is completely different, Dean Cormus said sharply. This is an apex predator from a Category 9 death world. Not a domesticated. She stopped suddenly as the baby Korval climbed onto Doyun's sleeping mat. It circled 3 times exactly like a cat would. Then it curled up against his side. Within moments, it was making a soft, steady sound that the monitors identified as the Korval version of sleep sounds. Doyun gently placed a hand on its back. He could feel the warmth of its body through the hard plates. "Good night, little one," he said softly in Korean, then in the common language. "Sleep well." In the observation gallery, the researchers watched as human and predator settled into sleep. The baby's deadly tail was curled protectively around the human's arm. "This changes everything," Thalmor said quietly. The lecture hall was full of nervous students. They came from many different planets and looked nothing alike. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had skin that looked like crystals. But today they all felt the same thing. Fear. Professor Velthar stood at the front of the room. He was old and covered in gray scales. His species was called Thraxian, and they were known to be very smart. Today his scales were moving in a way that meant he was happy. The students did not like that. When the professor was happy about a lesson, it usually meant something scary was coming. "Today we have something special," the professor said. His voice came through a small device that translated his words into a language everyone could understand. "We will see a baby Korval. They are one of the most dangerous hunters in the galaxy." The room exploded with sound. Students made frightened noises in their own languages. Some smelled bad because fear made them release chemicals. Others shook or hid behind their seats. Everyone knew about the Korval. They were monsters from a death world. Even the babies could kill most creatures without trying hard. In the third row sat a human named Doyun. He was 23 years old and came from a planet called Earth. He did not look scared. He was reading something on his electronic pad, trying to finish his homework before the weekend. Humans were new to space. Only 15 of them were studying at this academy. "Doyun," whispered another human sitting nearby. His name was Byung. "Did you hear?" "A Korval. Those things are supposed to be really scary." Doyun looked up from his work. His dark eyes were calm. "It's just a baby, right? How dangerous can it be?" A small alien sitting near them made a high squeaking sound. Her name was Piptil, and she looked like a tiny rabbit with big ears. "Dangerous enough to kill us all. Even baby Korvals have poison and can move faster than we can see." 2 guards walked into the room. They wore thick armor that covered their whole bodies. Between them, they carried a round container made of energy and metal. Inside, something black moved. The guards put the container on a platform in the center of the room where everyone could see it. Professor Velthar touched a button. The container became clear like glass. All the students leaned back in their seats. Some screamed. The baby Korval was about as big as a large cat from Earth, but it did not look like a cat at all. Its body was covered in black plates that moved like water. It had 6 legs with claws that made sparks when they touched the container. Its head was long with many eyes that shined like stars. Its tail was as long as its body and had a sharp point at the end. The point was glowing with poison. Wow, Doyen said softly. He leaned forward to see better. Byung stared at him. You think that's beautiful? That thing looks like a nightmare. The Korval species are ambush hunters, Professor Velthar continued. He seemed to enjoy how scared everyone was. They are smart and very deadly. This baby is only 3 months old, but it can already solve problems like a 5-year-old child from most species. The professor looked around the room. Who wants to come closer and look? Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the bravest students stayed in their seats. Piptil had rolled into a ball and was hiding. Nobody? The professor's scales moved in a way that meant he was amused. Are you all afraid of a tiny baby? Doyen raised his hand. Every student in the room turned to look at him. Byung grabbed his arm. Are you crazy? There's a force field around it, Doyen said. And I like learning about alien animals. This is a good chance to see one up close. Professor Velthar's translator made a strange sound like it was surprised. The human student wants to come forward? Yes, sir. Very interesting. The professor pointed toward the platform. Please come down. Everyone, watch how different species react to dangerous predators. Humans come from a death world too, so maybe they are not as afraid. Doyen walked down the steps. He could feel everyone watching him. He heard whispers and worried sounds following him. When he reached the platform, he looked at the Korval baby more carefully. Up close, it was even more amazing. The creature had stopped moving. All of its many eyes were staring at him. Doyen noticed small details that others might miss. The black plates on its body had pretty patterns. When light hit them, they showed colors like a rainbow. The way it tilted its head showed it was thinking. Hello there, Doyen said quietly in his own language first, then in the common language. You're very special, aren't you? The baby's tail stopped waving. Its shining eyes seemed to show Doyen's reflection many times. Professor Velthar came closer but stayed far enough to be safe. The creature is studying you. It is trying to decide if you are food, danger, or nothing important. Watch its body position. But something strange was happening. The baby Korval's fighting stance was getting softer. Its claws pulled back a little. The glowing poison in its tail became less bright. Then it started making a sound. At first the sound was very quiet. Then it got louder. It was a steady sound that repeated and vibrated through the container and across the platform. What? Professor Velthar's scales went flat. He looked shocked. That's not possible. What's it doing? Byung called from his seat. The professor seemed like he could not speak. When he finally talked, his voice was very quiet, but his translator made it loud enough for everyone to hear. It's purring. The whole lecture hall went wild. Students started talking all at once in different languages. The translators could not keep up with all the noise. Some students thought they heard wrong. Others thought the creature was using a trick to hunt. Purring? Piptil's voice was very high. Korvals don't purr. They attack, they kill, they hunt. Professor Velthar held up his hand for quiet. His scales were showing patterns that meant he was very confused. I promise you, what you hear is the Korval way of showing happiness. We have seen it when babies are with their mothers, but never with a different species, never. Doyun had not moved. He stood very still, watching the creature. The baby Korval had pressed itself against the inside of the container, as close to him as it could get. The purring sound got even louder. Some of its eyes closed like it was relaxed. Can I touch the energy field? Doyen asked. His voice was steady. Absolutely not. The professor's scales stood up in alarm. The container is there to protect you. Even through the energy wall, there's danger of... But Doyen had already moved. His hand reached toward the container's surface. Everyone in the room held their breath. The moment his hand touched the energy field, something wonderful happened. The baby Korval pressed its head against the same spot from inside. Only the energy wall was between them. The purring got so loud it shook the floor. This has never happened before, Professor Velthar whispered. He pulled out his recording device. Never in all our history. One of the guards stepped forward. He was big and strong, from a species known for fighting. He looked nervous. Sir, I have worked with dangerous animals for 15 years. I have never seen anything like this. The creature's attack signs are gone. Its poison has gone back inside its body. Even its fighting position has changed. It's treating the human like family, the professor finished. He sounded amazed. It's treating him like one of its own kind. Byung had walked down from his seat, though he stayed far from the platform. Doyen, this is incredible. But also scary. I don't know what to think. Doyen finally looked away from the creature to his friend. It's just scared, look at it. It's a baby that was taken from its mother. Someone put it in a box and brought it to a room full of strange creatures staring at it. Wouldn't you be frightened? Most creatures would be frightened, Professor Velthar said. That's what makes it dangerous. A scared hunter is the most deadly kind. But it's not scared anymore, Doyen said, looking back at the baby. Are you, little one? The baby did something that made several students gasp. One student even fainted. It rolled onto its back, showing its soft belly through the container. This was a sign of complete trust. Animals only did this when they felt totally safe. The emergency team stood frozen in the doorway. Their equipment hung useless in their hands. Nobody had rules for what to do in this situation. Nobody had ever needed rules for a deadly predator choosing to be friendly with another species. Doyen gently stroked the baby Korval's head. He was careful to move his hand in the right direction along its hard plates. The creature's purring got louder. Then it started doing something that made everyone watching gasp with surprise. It rubbed its body along Doyen's legs in a pattern that made a figure 8. Anyone from Earth would know this behavior. Cats did the exact same thing when they loved someone. Someone bring a xenobiologist here right now, Professor Velthar said. His voice was shaking. And contact the Institute. Tell them we have a Category 9 predator showing friendly bonding with a human student. Byung had carefully come closer again. He stayed several meters away but was close enough to be heard. Doyen, that thing could still kill you in 1 second. You understand that, right? You could technically kill me too, Doyun said. He did not look up from the creature. But you won't. That's different. I can think. That creature is just an animal. A baby animal that's confused and scared, Doyun said, stopping his friend mid-sentence. He was now sitting with his legs crossed on the platform. The baby Korval had curled up partly in his lap. This should not have been possible because of the creature's strange body shape. Its tail was wrapped loosely around Doyen's arm. The poison point was carefully aimed away from him. It's not a monster. Look at it carefully. One of the guards walked closer. Her name was Mirka. She had soft fur covering her whole body. She was scanning the creature with a small device. Her fur was standing straight up because she was so confused. Its stress chemicals are at normal levels. All aggression signs are gone. By every measure we have, this baby is completely happy. This goes against 200 years of research, Professor Velthar said. He approached slowly with his own scanning equipment. Korvals don't form bonds outside their immediate family. They certainly don't show love to species that could be their prey. Maybe humans are not prey to them, Doyen suggested. He had been thinking about this since the creature first relaxed near him. We come from a death world too, right? Earth is classified as a Class 7 hostile environment. Maybe the Korval recognizes something in me that it doesn't see in other species. Professor Velthar's scales moved in patterns that showed he was thinking deeply. The apex predator recognition theory. Some scientists have proposed it, but nobody has ever proven it. The idea is that creatures from death worlds can identify each other through smell, behavior, or other signs we don't fully understand. That makes sense to me, Doyen said. He was gently scratching behind what he guessed were the creature's ears. The Korval's purring reached a pitch that sounded almost like music. On Earth, even predators usually avoid fighting each other unless necessary. Too much risk for both animals. Maybe this little one just knows I'm not a threat and I'm not food. The doors to the lecture hall burst open again. A new group entered. Leading them was an impressive figure. Dean Cormus was a high-ranking member of the Academy's management. Her species was called Velshari. Her body was made of something like crystal that bent light into sharp patterns. Right now, those patterns looked angry. What? She said in a voice that could freeze water. Is the meaning of this disaster? Professor Velthar immediately stood up straight. His scales flattened to show respect. Dean Cormus, we had a container failure during a xenobiology class. However, the situation is under control. Under control? The dean's voice got louder. Several nearby students covered their ears. I see a Category 9 hostile predator loose in an academy building, in direct contact with a student, and you say this is under control? With respect, Dean, Mirka said, interrupting. The creature is showing no hostile behaviors at all. In fact, I don't care if it's singing songs, the dean said sharply. Academy rules are very clear. Any container failure with a Class 5 or higher predator requires immediate killing of the creature. Doyen's head came up fast. His eyes became hard. The baby Corval felt the sudden tension in him. It made a questioning sound and pressed closer. "You're not killing this creature," Doyen said. His voice was calm but had an edge that made people pay attention. Dean Cormus turned her crystal gaze on him. "Student, you have no authority here. That animal is a danger to everyone in this building. It hasn't shown a single sign of aggression since I touched it," Doyen interrupted. "The only danger here is from people panicking and making bad decisions." "How dare you?" the dean started. But Professor Velthar quickly stepped between them. "Dean Cormus, if I may speak, this situation gives us a chance we never had before. The human student may have discovered something important about how species from death worlds interact with each other. Killing the creature now would be a huge loss to science. And keeping it alive risks a terrible accident." The dean pointed at the baby Corval. "These creatures are apex predators for good reasons. They are not pets." "Nobody said it was a pet," Doyen replied. His hand had moved to a protective position around the baby. "But it's not dangerous right now either." Byung, who had been watching quietly, decided to speak. "Excuse me, Dean Cormus. I'm also human, and I think Doyen might be right. On Earth, we've made friends with hundreds of species, including apex predators. Wolves became dogs. Big cats became house cats. Maybe humans just see danger differently than other species do." "Your species has been in space for less than 1 year," the dean said in a dismissive way. "You cannot possibly understand the dangers." "We've been dealing with predators for millions of years," Doyen argued back. "We're hunters who evolved from prey animals. We understand danger very well because we had to. That's why I'm not scared of this baby. I can read its body language. I know when an animal is about to attack and when it's just frightened." The dean's crystal body flashed with angry colors. "This is not a debate. Security, prepare to—" "Wait!" a new voice called out. An old Thraxian was coming into the lecture hall. He walked with the help of a stick. His scales were pale with age and marked with complex patterns that showed he was very important in academics. "Before any final decisions are made, I want to hear the complete story of what happened here." Professor Velthar's scales showed relief and respect. "Head researcher Thalmor, I didn't know you were on campus today. I keep an office here, as you know very well, Velthar." The old researcher walked slowly toward the platform. His eyes stayed fixed on the sight of the human and the Corval together. Fascinating. Truly fascinating. Dean Cormus seemed less happy about his arrival. "Head researcher, Academy safety rules have probably been triggered without real need," Thalmor finished her sentence. "I have been studying Death World animals for 300 years. Dean, I know a non-hostile animal when I see one." He reached the platform and lowered himself carefully to look at the baby Corval at eye level. The creature watched him carefully but did not try to attack. Doyen kept his hand on its back in a steadying way. "Tell me, young human," Thalmor said, "what is your name?" "Doyen, sir. I study astrophysics. And you have experience with Earth predators?" Doyen nodded. "I grew up in the countryside. We had farm dogs and my neighbor raised cats. I learned early how to read animal behavior, how to stay calm around creatures that could hurt me if they wanted to." "And this one?" Thalmor pointed at the baby Corval. "Does it want to hurt you?" "No, sir. It's a baby that was taken away from its family. It's looking for comfort and safety, same as any young creature would want." The head researcher made a humming sound. His translator turned it into thoughtful contemplation. "In my 300 years of research, I have seen that Death World predators share certain traits across different species and planets. They are intelligent, adaptable, and very aware of the emotions of those around them. Perhaps humans, being from such a world themselves, send out signals that other predators recognize as familiar." "That's just guessing," Dean Cormus protested. "Not a reason for breaking safety rules." "Then let us test it scientifically," Thalmor suggested. "Allow the human to continue interacting with the creature under controlled conditions. Watch them both closely. Collect data. If at any point the Corval shows real aggression, we can step in. But if this bond proves stable," he paused. His old eyes were shining. "We may have discovered something that could change how we understand different species relating to each other." The dean looked like she wanted to argue more. But challenging head researcher Thalmor's knowledge was not something people did easily. After a long moment, she gave a sharp nod. Fine, but this creature does not leave a secured facility, and the human stays under constant watch. Doyen felt his shoulders relax. The baby Corval sensed his relief and started purring again. The sound echoed through the now quiet lecture hall like a strange alien song of happiness. The week of observation passed more peacefully than anyone had thought possible. Doyen and the baby Corval had developed what could only be called a real bond. Despite protests that naming the creature was not professional, Doyen had started calling it Bomb. This was the Korean word for spring. By day 3, Bomb would greet Doyen by standing up on its back legs. It would place its front pairs of legs on his chest. The researchers said this was similar to how Corval siblings greet their brothers and sisters. By day 5, Bomb was following simple commands in the common language. Sit, stay, come. By day 7, it had learned to play fetch with a rubber ball. It would bring the ball back with clear enjoyment and do what could only be called a happy dance before running to chase it again. The observation gallery was always crowded with academics, administrators, and curious visitors. Word had spread throughout the academy and beyond. The human who had made friends with an apex predator had become famous. Though Doyen himself did not seem to notice the attention. On the morning of the 8th day, head researcher Thalmor called for a formal meeting. The lab's main conference room was packed with representatives from many different organizations. Some of them Doyen did not recognize. After 7 days of intensive observation and data collection, Thalmor began in his old but strong voice. We have documented a stable, non-hostile bond between human Doyen and the Corval specimen. The creature shows no signs of aggression toward its bonded human. It has demonstrated remarkable intelligence and ability to learn. It's not about the creature, one of the military representatives interrupted. His name was Commander Tren. It's about what this means for human integration into the galactic community. If humans can bond with Category 9 predators, what else might they be capable of? Doyen was sitting with Bomb curled at his feet in a special area of the conference room. He frowned. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Your species is from a death world, Commander Tren continued. You're persistence hunters, apex predators yourselves by some measures. If you can tame creatures that we consider deadly— Bomb isn't tamed, Doyen interrupted quietly. That would take generations of selective breeding. Bomb has just learned that I'm safe. And I've learned how to read its behavior. That's not taming. That's just friendship, Dean Cormus repeated. Her crystal surface flickered with doubt, with a creature that, when fully grown, could tear through a starship wall. My people have been friends with wolves for 40,000 years, Doyen replied. Wolves that could tear a human apart if they wanted to. But they don't because they're part of our families. Because we understand each other. Professor Velthar looked through his data. The readings support the human's interpretation. The Corval's brain patterns when interacting with Doyen are consistent with pack bonding behaviors. It sees him as its family. Which raises another question, said a new voice. A scientist named Hiron, who represented the Galactic Biological Ethics Committee, leaned forward. What happens when this study ends? The baby cannot stay with the human forever. Doyen's hand moved unconsciously to where Bomb was resting. The creature stirred, sensing his tension. Why not? Because you're a student, Dean Cormus said impatiently. You live in a dormitory. You attend classes. You cannot bring an apex predator with you to astrophysics lectures. Actually, Thalmor said, I've been considering that exact problem. The Academic Council has approved the creation of a new research program focused on human-predator interaction. If Doyen were to transfer into this program as a primary researcher, he could continue working with the specimen under controlled conditions. Doyen blinked in surprise. You want me to change my major? I want to offer you the opportunity to be part of something revolutionary, Thalmor corrected. Your bond with the Corval could open doors we didn't know existed. Imagine if we could establish similar bonds with other supposedly incompatible species. Imagine if Death World animals could be understood rather than feared. Or weaponized, Commander Tren said quietly. The room went silent. Doyen's eyes became hard. Excuse me? Your species has a talent for warfare, the commander continued. It's documented in your history. If humans can control apex predators, train them, bond with them, that's a military resource. Absolutely not, Doyen said. His voice was harder than anyone had heard before. Bomb raised its head. Its scales became darker in response to his emotional state. Bomb isn't a weapon. None of these creatures should be weapons. The commander raises a valid concern, even if stated poorly. Hiron from the Ethics Committee said diplomatically, "We must consider the implications of this research. If humans have this capability, others may try to exploit it." Byung, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. Maybe that's exactly why Doyen should continue the research, to make sure it's done ethically with respect for the creatures involved. The human friend makes a good point, Professor Velthar added. Better to study this openly with proper oversight than to ban it and force the research to happen in secret. Dean Cormus's crystal body flashed through several colors. This meant she was thinking hard. Finally, she spoke. "I want it recorded that I still have doubts about this entire situation. However, I cannot deny the potential scientific value. If the head researcher believes it deserves a formal program, and if the human agrees, I will not stand in the way." Thalamor turned to Doyen. "What do you say, young human? Will you help us understand what we've feared for so long?" Doyen looked down at Bomb. The creature gazed back with those multiple shining eyes full of trust and alien intelligence. He thought about his original plan to study astrophysics, to map the stars and solve cosmic mysteries. That dream wasn't gone, just postponed. "I'll do it," he said, "but I have one condition." "Name it," Thalamor replied. "We do this right. No cages unless absolutely necessary. No treating these creatures like objects or weapons. If we're going to study them, we treat them with respect, like the intelligent beings they are." A wave of surprise went through the room. It was one thing to bond with a creature. It was another thing to advocate for its rights. "You speak of respect for something that most species see as a monster," Commander Tren observed. "That's because most species don't understand them," Doyen argued. "On Earth, we used to fear wolves and big cats. We called them monsters and demons. But then we learned. We understood. And we found that they weren't monsters at all. They were just different from us, playing their role in nature. The Korval are the same." Head researcher. Thalmor's scales moved in a pattern that showed deep satisfaction. "Then it's decided. Welcome to the Xenobiology Department, Researcher Doyen. Your first assignment is to continue documenting your bond with the Korval specimen. You will also begin developing protocols for safe interaction with other predator species." The meeting broke up into smaller discussions about logistics, funding, and facilities. Doyen listened with half his attention. Most of his focus was on Bomb, who had come out of the containment area. The creature was doing its happy dance. It sensed that something good had happened even if it didn't understand the details. Byung approached with a grin and shook his head. "You realize you've just become the most famous human in the galaxy, right? The Predator Whisperer or something like that." "I just want to help people understand," Doyen said simply. "Well, you've definitely got everyone's attention." Byung glanced at Bomb, who was now trying to climb up Doyen's leg. "Still can't believe that thing likes you so much." "That thing is a living being with emotions and needs," Doyen corrected gently. He helped Bomb up so the baby could sit on his shoulder. This was a position it had recently become fond of despite its growing size. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Not that humans are special or that we have some magic ability with predators, but that when you approach any creature, any being with kindness instead of fear, with understanding instead of assumptions, they usually respond in kind. From across the room, Thalmor heard this and his old eyes gleamed. "Spoken like a true researcher. Though I suspect you're teaching us as much as we'll ever teach you." As the meeting finally ended and people left, still discussing everything they'd witnessed, Doyen remained seated with Bomb on his shoulder. The creature's purring was a constant, comforting vibration against his neck. Through the conference room window, he could see the stars beyond the Academy's protective dome. He'd come here to study space to understand the grand mysteries of the universe. Instead, he'd found himself at the center of a different kind of mystery. One about connection, understanding, and the bridges that could be built between very different forms of life. Perhaps, he thought, this was just as important. The universe was huge and full of wonders. But the creatures they shared it with, whether human, Thraxian, Korval, or any of the thousands of other species out there, they were wonders too. 6 months passed quickly. The new interspecies predator research facility had become one of the most visited places on campus. What had started as a small program with one human and one Korval had grown into something much bigger. Doyen stood in the central observation dome. He watched as a group of students practiced interaction techniques with various predator species. There was Minji, a human student from Busan working with a juvenile,